So good morning. Today, the first Sunday of the month, we are back to the book Liberation. And today we're going to study chapter 11, An Invaluable Experience. So what we studied in the last couple of months, that Gubbio, the mentor with Andre Luiz and Eloy, had an opportunity to get an authorization from the leader of the lower zones, Gregorio, to go and try to assist in the process that was being taken place of obsessing Margarida, who we know is very dear to Gubbio's heart. They went there, they met the leader of the team that was put in charge of the process of obsession. The leader's name is Saldanha. They saw what was her physical state, connected with Saldanha, of course, disguising themselves, not presenting themselves as they really are, but as just workers. So that they darken their very spirit, so to say, not to call any attention. And they're still in the process when a doctor, last chapter, we saw a doctor attending and advising them to look for a medium to assist them, that she may be helped and assisted by a medium, and that's what we are going to see in this chapter. Okay, so we saw Andre Luiz following the doctor at home, and we got a little bit sidetracked with the life of the doctor, the difficult life, the second wife, the sons, but this has nothing. Doesn't carry to this chapter. Here we are back to Margarida, Gabriel, Gabriel, who is Margarida's husband, trying to help her, and with Saldanha, the leader of the obsessing process. Okay, so who's going to read?
Okay, I'll read it, John.
All right. Yeah, okay.
Okay, chapter 11, An Invaluable Experience. Heeding of the doctor's suggestion, the next morning, Gabriel got ready to take his wife to be examined by a famous professor of psychic sciences in hopes of securing his beneficent help. I could see that people's freedom regarding such consultations was almost unlimited, because Gubbio was not at all pleased about it and discreetly told me that he was going to do everything he could to prevent it, that in his opinion, it would only be profitable and worthwhile if they went to a different authority on the matter. In our cautious guide's opinion, the professor was indeed an admirable exponent of phenomena, a bearer of remarkable mediumistic gifts, but because his mind was too attached to the common interests of the earthly experience, he could not truly help those who came to him. Psychic work, the instructor said in a nearly imperceptible voice, is an activity that is as common as any other. The main thing is to develop a sanctifying work. Consulting intermediaries, that is, holders of outstanding faculties in the informative sector of acknowledged competency when dealing with two worlds, is like contacting holders of great wealth. If holders of such great assets are not interested in using them for the happiness of others, such knowledge or money will only increase their depth of selfishness, useless distraction, or the regrettable waste of time. In spite of this opportune remark, we saw that the obsessed woman's husband was not open to our changing his mind. All of a sudden, all our subtle efforts to get him to take a different course failed. Gabriel did not know how to reflect. Although visibly worried, Gubbio said, "At any rate, we are here to help and serve in any way we can. Let's follow the couple on this new adventure. We will soon be meeting the psychiatrist." With a lot of interest, as if he had known beforehand about what was going to happen, Saldanha followed the tiniest measures without releasing the young woman. A few minutes before 11 a.m., we found ourselves in a large waiting room, waiting to be called in. There were 3 other groups of people waiting anxiously. The professor was in his office treating a mental patient whom we could hear uttering disconnected sentences in a loud voice. I could see that all those present were accompanied by a large number of discarnates. To be more precise, the whole place was like a large hive of workers without physical bodies. Low order spirits were coming and going, paying little attention to us.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Just a small correction. It's not a psychiatrist here, the psychic. Okay.
Okay.
Here, where we would soon be meeting the psychic, not the psychiatrist.
Mhm.
So they are going to a medium or a psychic, a famous professor of psychic sciences. And Gubbio is clearly not happy because he knows what type of work this psychic does, meaning he's completely and fully connected to things of the material world, of the physical world. He ponders that it would only be helpful if they went to a different medium, not this one. He's not saying that he's not a good medium. He said actually he's an admirable exponent of the phenomena, meaning his mediumship is a very developed. He has remarkable mediumistic gifts, but his mind is attached to the common interests of the earth. So he could not truly help those that came to him. And again, for us to reflect here, we see this, especially in this country. We have psychics in every corner here in New York City. And some of them are mediums, some of them are not mediums, but they all claim to be psychics, which, it's those that have the ability to interact with the spiritual world, go to the spiritual world and bring information. But as Gubbio says here, it's a common activity, a psychic work, and we see here, there is all around the world. But the main thing is to develop a sanctifying work, and that's not what many of those do, because what they do is pay attention only to things related to the physical world, money, interests here, and he says, Gubbio says here, that consulting those that have this information from the spiritual world, but have no sanctifying interest in sublimating this work is like contacting, asking for a connection with those with great wealth that are not interested in using the wealth to help others. So they are keeping their wealth, and they're only increasing their responsibility because of their selfishness. But Gabriel, the husband, would not hear Gubbio's influence, trying to move him away from this idea. So they go see the psychic, and Gubbio says, "We're here to help. Let's see what happens in this consultation." And when they find themselves in that place, they see that there are 3 other group of people waiting, and we are going to see each one of these groups in this chapter separately. And the professor was treating a mental patient, but the thing is, low order spirits were coming and going. There was no protection on that environment. Why there is no protection? Because the work that he is doing attracts low order spirits, not high order spirits. High order spirits will be there to help and assist those that are really doing the work of enlightenment, of truly assistance. If not, you will see what we will have is this congregation of low order spirits. Okay. Any questions here? Okay, let's continue.
In light of Sartanin iron intention to keep Margarita under his strict control, our instructor said that he wanted to check out the place and took us with him to study some of the other patients. We approached an older gentleman in an easy chair. He was accompanied by two young men and showed symptoms of obvious nervous condition. His very pale forehead was covered with cold sweat and lines of threat, displaying his lymphadenopathy. One could see that he was being tormented by fearful visions known only to himself. I perceived his mental troubles and was astonished to see several dark ovoid forms, all different from one another, clinging to his perispirit. I was interested in what our instructor might have to say. Gubbio was studying him meticulously, obviously preparing to offer us invaluable insights. After a few moments, he explained in a muffled voice, "Notice what physiological calamities, mental disturbances can cause a person. This man is a police investigator with serious mental problems. He couldn't hold the billy club of responsibility. He used it to humiliate and hurt others. He managed to avoid remorse for a few years, but each thought of indication of his victims began to circle in his psychic atmosphere, waiting for a chance to make itself felt. His cruel ways attracted not only the anger of a lot of people, but also the constant company of the worst kinds of entities who ruined his mental life. When the time came for him to look back on his life in the intimacy of the early symptoms of bodily old age, remorse opened a huge breach in the fortress in which he had become entrenched. The accumulated energies of the destructive thoughts he had brought on himself due to his thoughtless conduct was suddenly unleashed through affliction and fear, breaking down his delusive organic resistance like furious storms that demolished a fragile dam that is supposed to hold back the increasing surge of the waters. Surviving the crisis, imbalanced energies of his troubled mind whipped the delicate organs of his physical body. The most vulnerable ones have suffered terrible consequences. Not only does his nervous system suffer incredible torture, but his traumatized liver is on the blink of fatal cirrhosis. Sensing our silent questions regarding a possible solution for Doloria's enigma, Gubbio emphasized, "Down deep, this friend is actually being persecuted by himself. He is tormented by what he has been and by what he has done. Only an extreme mental change for the good will keep him in his physical vessel. A renewing faith, along with an effort at persistent and worthy reform to a nobler moral life, will confer higher directives on him, providing him with the power needed for self-restoration. He is controlled by the malignant images that he has constructed and isolated in dark rooms to the simple love of mauling unfortunate people under the pretext of safeguarding social harmony. The memory is a living, miraculous photographic plate that holds the images of our actions and gathers the sound of what we say and hear. It is our memories that we either condemn or absolve ourselves. The subject was alluding, but perhaps not to awaken too much attention from Saldana and the other uneducated spirits that were eyeing us curiously. Gubbio began to study another case with us. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So this is the first case of the patients that are there waiting for the consultation with the psychic. what they are looking for with the psychic. They are looking for healing, right? They are looking for immediate resolution of their problems, and we know that that's the solution has to come from ourselves. We have to work ourselves to find the solution to our problems. External help, yes, it can help. We can receive assistance from others, physically, incarnate and discarnate. But if we don't do our part, nothing will happen. It's going to be a temporary solution, if all. So this older gentleman, the story of, he was a former policeman, right? And he clearly has some nervous condition. Andre Luiz talks about that perceiving his mental troubles, and saw several dark ovoid forms. Again, we go back to the ovoids. They are used by the obsessors to cause harm to incarnates and discarnates. They attach these ovoid forms that connect, that enter into syntony because of the same desire, same obsessions, same interests with the suffering ones. We have some connected to Margarida that we saw in the last chapter. We analyzed some in the place where Gregorio leads, right? We discussed about the ovoids. So these are spirits that became consumed by a mono idea, normally related to either an addiction or an obsession, or vengeance, hatred, a desire to harm someone that becomes their sole idea, and they start losing their perispiritual form and they acquire an ovoid form. And let's say someone is addicted to sex and become an ovoid, he's going to be used by the obsessors to connect to an incarnate individual that has also an addiction to sex, increasing the addiction and increasing the harm that can cause to the individual. That's how these ovoids are used by the obsessors, okay? Gubbio talks a little bit about the story of this man. He was a police investigator, and when he says he couldn't hold the billy club of responsibility, meaning he used his power and his weapons to harm, to torture, to pressure, things that we know from seeing out there policemen using and all other types of violent methods. And this guy, in the eyes of society, right, he got away with it because according to society, he was doing his work. But of course, as he gets close to the end of his life, an older age, and he starts reflecting on his life, what happens? Guilty comes to him because he starts questioning his actions. Again, it's not going to happen to everybody. Some people will carry their evil tendencies back to the spiritual world and will have to readjust there. But some people will reflect on their lives here while incarnate, and with their reflections will start feeling guilty. And of course, with all the harm that he has caused, he's connected to the worst kind of entities that, as soon as he opens the door, go and attack him because they want vengeance. They want to destroy him, like they claim he destroyed their life, right? So this becomes an obsessive process, and it's very important here when Gubbio says that deep down, this friend is actually being persecuted by himself. He's been tormented by what he has been and by what he has done. You know, you cannot blame the entities associated to him. He attracted these entities because of what he did, and he's the one that is causing most harm to himself. And then Gubbio says, the memory is a living, miraculous photographic plate that holds the images of our actions and gathers the sound of what we say and hear. It is with our memories that we either condemn or absolve ourselves, because it's very important when we talk about obsession. It's a two-way street. There is not one single part that is guilty and the other is not. Both sides are guilty, if not in the present, in the past, somewhere. So it's very interesting here to the description of his physical conditions, his nervous system suffering a torture, and his liver is in the brink of fatal cirrhosis. They don't go into much detail here, but of course, we can imagine that he caused harm to his liver, probably with drinking or other things, okay? Again, I told you that we're going to go case by case. This is the first case. Any questions, comments here?
Yeah, Sean, how are you? I think in this particular case, what we witness here, in my opinion, as Andre Luiz says, is actually being persecuted by himself, doesn't appear to have a third party or an obsessor per se. I know you don't like the word out of obsession, but this is the case that if there is such a thing as out of obsession, he is being persecuted by the conflict, the internal conflict of the divine laws imprinted in our and in his conscience. Now that he has to resolve that conflict with his actions, with his behaviors, that contradicts, that goes completely against those divine laws in our conscience. And I understand that those ovoids have similar spiritual pathology, so to say, you know, this conflict, this internal conflict, and they are attracted by this individual because they have this similarity of pathologies, not necessarily being obsessors of him. If there is something as an out obsession, that would be a case of it. Because there is no description over here that there is someone else persecuting him but himself.
Yeah, well, they only say constant company of the worst kinds of entities, but it doesn't really say obsession.
Right, yeah. So that is, individuals have similarity of disturbances. Now, one could imagine, because of his behaviors, he has lots of people who's seeking some kind of justice from him for the way he has behaved, misusing his authority, of course.
Yeah, I think you know, it's you are right. He's the one obsessing himself, right? He's the one causing more harm to himself than any other external factors, right?
Yeah, but again, I would not rule out the possibility that there is a lot of people seeking justice for the way he's misused his authority as well.
Yeah, we all have our obsessors, right? Those around us. So I'm sure he has connections there. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the second case now.
Okay. We approached a sofa on which a respectable looking woman was sitting beside a young neurotic one. They appeared to be grandmother and granddaughter. Two sinister looking spirits flanked the girl as if she were being shielded by overprotective bodyguards. The older woman was anxiously waiting for a consultation. The girl was talking nonsense, but it was not of her own doing. Tenuous threads of magnetic energy connected her brain to the head of the wrenched brother on her left. She was completely controlled by his thoughts, like hypnotist and subject. The girl was smiling blankly and was chatting aimlessly about plans for vengeance with all the characteristics of mental impairment and unawareness. Rubio examined her with his usual care and then explained, this case involves a glorious drama from the past. Life cannot be seen within the narrow scope of a single physical existence. It encompasses eternity, centuries of ad infinitum. This girl went into serious depth in the past. She married a man and lured his brother into corruption. The former committed suicide and the latter went mad. Now, here they are at her side to get their revenge. Her grandmother has set her up to get married because she's afraid to leave her to herself in the world. However, before this beneficent plan can materialize, both victims from her past life are determined to prevent the marriage. The outraged former husband, still in early stages of his spiritual evolution, cannot forget the wrong she did him. Thus, he has taken over her centers of speech and equilibrium. He fills her mind with his own ideas, subjugating her and demanding her presence in his own realm. The poor thing is saturated with fluids that are not her own. She has already consulted several psychics, without results. Now she has come here seeking help. Will she find a suitable remedy? Asked a strongly impressed Ilio. It doesn't look like she's on the right track. She needs inner renewal. And from what I can tell, she will receive only a mild palliative here. In cases of obsession like this one, where the victim can still defend herself, personal resistance is imperative. But it does no good to remove the iron fillings that stick to a magnet when the magnet itself continues to attract the fillings. We would have been greatly blessed with more insights if we had continued with this particular case. However, Saldanan was looking at us questioningly and had to move on.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So that's the second case, and the translation is right. She has consulted several psychiatrists without results. It's not that's the first psychic, as far as we know. So this is contrary to the other. This is a clear case of obsession. We have two obsessors attached to her, the former husband and the former brother-in-law. It's a young girl. Chlorotic is iron deficient anemia due to dietary causes. Is that correct, Elmo? Well, that's the information we have here. So this grandmother and granddaughter, and clearly two obsessors flanking the girl. And then Gubbio says that, the girl was in a very disturbed state, talking to herself, talking out loud, smiling and chatting without making any sense. She was just reflecting the wretched brother and the former husband connected to her and trying to cause damage to her vengeance, right? So her case, she married this man and then lured his brother into corruption. One committed suicide, the other went mad, and of course they go back to the spiritual world and they become obsessors. As soon as they find her, they connect to her and they are trying to cause her death so they can have her back in the spiritual world and cause more damage to her in the spiritual world. So this is a clear case of obsession, which is it's not a simple obsession. This is it can be some way of subjugation because she's acting not on her own, but under the control of these two obsessors, especially the former husband. And of course, the psychiatrist that she consulted couldn't find any solution because it's a spiritual problem. It's not a physical problem. They can treat the physical instrument, but they cannot treat the spiritual side of the problem. And Gubbio says that in cases of obsession like this one, where the victim can still defend herself, meaning she's not completely subjugated. When you're completely subjugated, you can barely defend yourself. She still can defend herself, but she has to do the work, personal resistance. But you cannot remove the obsessors if she continues attracting them through her own vibrations. He gives a good example. You cannot remove the iron filings that stick to a magnet when the magnet itself continues to attract the filings, the filings. So, filings, yes, sorry. So again, a very clear case of obsession, a serious case of obsession, not simple obsession, but that needs, that we can see how, because looking from the physical point of view, we see her as a victim. She's being attacked by two merciless spirits, and what she has done at this young age of hers, nothing. But if we look at the past, and if we look here, centuries ad infinitum, as Gubbio says, eternity, we are going to find the reasons for this obsession that she's going through, which is, again, the obsession happens when there is a shaking of hands, like Julio used to say, right? So she's attracting them, she's connected to them. It's not, she's not an innocent victim, once again. It's important for us to understand the process of obsession here. Okay? Elmo, anything to add here?
No, that's a clear case of a very deep obsession. And he mentions the offenders that in the past was the victim, as you have said, you know, the victim of today very often is the offender of the past, until one of the sides decides to break that cycle.
I like to, may I?
Yes, Paco. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they mentioned the grandmother here. Okay, what would be the logic, the rationale behind her participation? I kind of missed that.
Yeah, they don't say anything specifically on the grandmother, but we could guess the role. The grandmother could be a spirit devoted to the granddaughter that incarnated in order to help and assist, try to find some sort of assistance for the granddaughter. It could be just a familial spirit that you know, is there, that loves the granddaughter and is trying to help, with not a specific high spiritual mission, but just a part of the family, right? You are born within your family, and sometimes you try to help the difficult cases in your family without any specifically past link. But again, these are all suppositions. The only thing we know is that the grandmother is not there by chance. She has some responsibility or willingness to save and rescue her granddaughter. But they don't say much, and we can only speculate here. I don't know, Elmo, if you want to add something here.
No, I totally agree. It's just someone who's being proactive, trying to help someone else. In this case, has to be the granddaughter. Could be the grandfather, could be the mother, could be the aunt. But it's someone proactive, trying to help someone.
And again, not by chance. There is, you know, some, even if they are newly acquired connections, if they were not connected in the past, the grandmother has the good heart to try to assist this spirit in need, the granddaughter. We don't know the details, so we can only speculate. But we can for sure say that there is no chance. The grandmother is there for a reason. She wants or needs to be there.
Okay. I thought much more along codependency issues. You understand, instead of because she was afraid to leave her to herself in the world. So.
Yeah, because she cares. But the reasons behind this care, we don't really know because they don't say anything here. Could be several reasons.
But that's exactly my point. Does she care, or is she taken care of?
No, she cares for the granddaughter. She cares for the granddaughter.
That was my distinction.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I don't think.
Because if she didn't care for the granddaughter, she wouldn't be trying to help. She wouldn't be trying to find solution. Even it's not even again, grandchildren are also family, but the major responsibility are on the parents. We have no idea about the parents. They don't say anything here, so we don't know if they are alive, if they are present in her life. Maybe that she's taking care of the granddaughter, not the parents are not in the picture. But she cares for her granddaughter, so that's why they say here she's afraid to leave her to herself in the world. So that means that she deeply cares to take care of the granddaughter, but the reasons why could be several.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, now the last case here.
Okay. We came to the darkest corner of the waiting room where two middle-aged men sat in silence. Right away, we could see that one of them was definitely imbalanced. He was very pale and nervous, displaying signs of profound anxiety. Next to them was a humble-looking discarnate. I took him to be just part of the large group of troubled spirits at work there, but I was pleasantly surprised when he addressed Gubbio, exclaiming discreetly, "I can see by your vibratorial tone that you are friends of the good," indicating the patient, he said. "I have come here on behalf of this friend. As you know, in that office is a powerful medium that has not received inner illumination. He has attracted a few dozen barely educated discarnates who absorb his emanations and work blindly under his orders, whether good or bad." He smiled and added, "Here, patients are not actually helped by the helper himself. Instead, they are helped by the spiritually constructive assistance that he has access to." I asked him about this particular patient, and he explained kindly, This friend is an austere public administrator. As a steward and a discipliner, he cannot use the cotton of tenderness on others' injuries and is subject to needless hatred and silent persecutions that have ceaselessly lashed his mind for many years. This has resulted in perilous reactions in his circulatory system, the area that is the least resistance in his physical cosmos. Struggling fearlessly to readjust the attitudes of lazy employees, but lacking weapons of love for his own defense. His coronary arteries have suffered considerable damage. Similar attacks by imponderable forces have also taken aim at his liver and spleen, which are in a dreadful state. Moreover, the large group of persecutors that were awakened by his forceful and educated work have managed to instill in his doctors the idea of removing his gallbladder. The operation would encounter complications that would cause the unexpected death of his body. The plan is impressively well thought out. Nevertheless, due to the goodness that exists at the bottom of his severity, we are going to try to assist him through this medium. I have received orders to prevent surgery, and I am confident that I will be successful. Of course, I would have loved to examine the patient to see how much mental damage he has sustained, but a look from Gubbio changed my mind.
So here we have the last case, and it's interesting because this is not someone that is evil or was evil or committed evil acts. He's a worker, a serious worker that doesn't show any tenderness, doesn't show any, is very rigid, very strict. So this, by doing his work in a very strict way and without any flexibility towards his employees, they say the lazy employees, he gathers enemies that are causing him harm. But the thing here that is different is that he's assisted by more evolved spirits. You see that the spirit that first the spirit knows that Gubbio and Andre Luiz and Eloy are friends of the good, as he says. He can see by the vibrational tone, and he's there to help this individual because the medium is just an intermediary. And in this case, he can be helped and receive messages from good spirits. And again, this brings us a very important point on this world of psychics and mediums that do their work for money, for material and benefits. Not everyone that goes there is going to be deceived or is going to be receive simple information or not useful information. Those that really need assistance, they go there with good intentions and they deserve to be helped and assist, will be helped and assisted, like the case of this spirit here, that whenever the medium enters into a trance, the psychic enters into a trance, these spirits are going to prevent the low order spirits to talk to him and going to give the counsels, the advice that this friend in need needs to hear. In his case, is to avoid the surgery that is going to cause more harm than good. So important here, due to the goodness that exists at the bottom of his severity, meaning he's not doing it by evil, he's doing it thinking he's doing the right thing. It's just that he's just too strict, and you can, cause harm to others. In the pursuit of doing good, you end up causing harm to others if you are not flexible. We need to learn to be flexible, to be accept the other one's shortcomings, mistakes, and imperfections. And by what they describe, he's not. It's my way or the highway, with good intentions. He doesn't want to harm anyone, but he wants everyone to follow his orders, to follow his rules. So good intention, not exactly the best choice, but he's going to receive the assistance he needs because the protecting spirits are there to help and assist him. It's a very interesting case, of course, different from the two others, in the sense that this individual is going to receive from this medium, despite the medium's lack of interest of truly helping those that come to him. He's only interested in receiving money. He's going to be the instrument of help and assistance to this individual because this individual deserves to be helped. Very important concept here, and very important for us to understand the differences. Okay, Elmo, you have something to add here?
And this particular person, if he is guilty of anything, he is guilty, as the group says over here, of lacking the weapons of love for his own defense. So he's someone who is doing right intellectually, but lacks that moral authority that it always used over here to be a weapon of defense, to be an energy that surrounds and protects him against all this, which seems to be, I'm gonna use the word, magnetic energies, because it's not even spiritual. It's incarnate to incarnate in this case. So it's more of the magnetic level of mesmerism that he's being consistently being bombarded with these negative energies that is affecting his physical system. And that is the need of, use the expression, iron fist and soft hands, right? He has the iron fist, he's lacking the soft hand.
Any questions here? It's important to understand the role of these mediums for hire, okay? That how, you know, why some people go through this type of people and receive the help, and some people go and receive no help. You know, this could apply for mediums that do healing, spiritual, physical surgeries. Some people go there and receive the help, and some people go there and nothing happens, and then, you know, it causes a lot of controversy on the mediums. It's just that some that go there deserve to be helped and assisted, and the superior spirits, the more evolved spirits, will be always there to help those that deserve to receive help through any means that they can use, including this type of mediums. Okay. So we went through the 3 cases. Now we're back to Margarita's case. Okay.
I think that's a very important point. Is what explains the John of God and many others throughout history, that you have 2 sides who will absolutely swear that they are being helped by those individuals, and those who say, no, it's a fake, nothing happens, I've been there and not happened.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly my thought here when I, you know, and it's for people that have no knowledge of how this all process works. It makes no sense, right?
Right.
Why some people are helped and some people are not, and it's the same medium, same healer, and you know, some people see him as a saint, and some people see him as a charlatan, right? And he's neither. He's just an intermediary that is using his God-given abilities on the wrong path, but serving as an instrument of help to some and not to others.
Okay. Continue.
Right.
We had important responsibilities and had to get back to Sadhana. Margarita's case was complex, and we had to remain firm to find a solution. Sensing our willingness to help, the poor woman's obsessor welcomed us trustingly. Putting on airs of a super intelligent person, he told our instructor that he had decided to solicit the neutrality of the professor's spirit helpers. He said shrewdly that it was necessary to hamper the medium's compassion and to confuse his examination by every means possible. After this surprising statement, he ordered one of his most influential collaborators to appear, and the odd figure of a dwarf with an enigmatic expression face appeared before us. Saldanan asked for his help, explaining that the psychic was not to get involved with Margarita's problem. In exchange for this favor, he promised excellent remuneration in a nearby colony, not only for the dwarf himself, but for the other assistants as well. He told him how he would provide him with luxury and pleasures in the hive of perturbed and ignorant spirits where we had met Gregorio. The dwarf displayed undisguised happiness and assured Saldanan that the medium would perceive nothing at all. With understandable curiosity, I followed the chain of events. As soon as we entered the office, I could see that it did not inspire much confidence. The professor immediately explained his fee and asked Gabriel for a rather large payment up front. The business between the 2 spheres was like any other negotiation. I could see right away that even if the medium was able to somewhat control the spirits that used his efforts, by the same token, he was easily controlled by them. The office was full of low-order spirits. Saldanha got right to work and told us that he was going to monitor the medium's procedures closely. And he gleefully told us that he had enlisted the help of all the spirits there. Consequently, the three of us could observe what was happening and learn a valuable lesson. Visibly satisfied with the financial arrangements, the medium began to concentrate deeply, and I noticed a flow of energies emanating from all his pores, but most especially from his mouth, nostrils, ears, and chest area. That force, resembling a fine and subtle vapor, filled the small office, and I saw that the low-order spirits who assisted the medium during his acute incursions on our plane inhaled it deeply, nourishing themselves with it, just as ordinary persons nourish themselves with protein, carbohydrates, and vitamins. Examining the scene, Rubio explained in a voice of imperceptible to everyone else. That energy is not the patrimony of the privileged few. It is something common to all individuals, but only those who exert it through precise thinking can understand and utilize it. It is Newton's Spiritus Subtilissimus Miramus magnetic fluid and Van Reichenbach's Odat force. In essence, it is a plastic energy of the mind, which accumulates it within itself after having taken it from the universal fluid in which all the currents of life are bathed and renewed in the highly diverse kingdoms of nature within the universe. Each living being is a transformer of this energy, according to that being's receptive and radiating potential. Human beings reincarnate hundreds of times to learn how to use, develop, enrich, and supplement, ennoble, and divinize it. However, in most cases, they avoid the struggle, which they interpret as suffering and affliction, when actually it is an inestimable resource for spiritual growth. Thus, they delay their own sanctification, the only way we can draw nearer to the Creator. Observing the scene, stop there? No, observing, okay.
Continue. Continue, Soraya.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Observing the scene that was developing, I commented, but we have to admit that this scene medium is a powerful instrument. He is in full contact with the spirits that assist him and who in turn find him to be a solid support. You're right about that, confirmed our guide serenely, but there's no indication that he is morally evolved. The professor of relations with our spheres, a spheres that is unapproachable to ordinary person for now, is attuned to the vibratorial emissions of the low order spirits around him, and he can hear their opinions and register their suggestions. But that's not enough. Those who disengage themselves from their corporeal vehicle don't suddenly initiate themselves into divinity. There are billions of involving spirits surrounding incarnates in every area of struggle. Many of them are of a lower order than their incarnate counterparts are, and they easily become passive instruments of incarnate's desires and passions. Hence, a capacity for sublimation is imperative for all those who dedicate themselves to the interchange between two worlds. For if virtue is transmissible, vices are highly contagious.
Okay. A lot of things here, a lot of information. Let's try to go step by step here. So first thing that Saldanha, the leader of the obsessors, still thinking that Gubbio and Andre Luiz and Eloy are there to help. He's clearly to talk to them about his plans, and it's interesting that his plan is using the medium as a neutral information. It's going to make the medium do not give any information, to say that it's not a spiritual problem. So he asks for the assistance of one of his collaborators and the collaborators of the medium, and that this spirit, this strange spirit, appears. He talks to the spirit, asking for help. Again, explaining that the psychic was not to get involved with Margarita's problem. Again, wrong here, not psychiatrist, psychic. And he promised, again, the currency in the lower zones is favors, right? Excellent favors in the colony, in Gregorio's colony, but not only for the spirit himself, but for the other assistants, providing him with luxury and pleasures in the Gregorio city. So the dwarf was happy, and told that Saldanha that the medium wouldn't perceive anything at all. When they enter into the office, first thing is to pay. So he explained the fee. Gabriel paid a large payment up front, and Andre Luiz comments that he could see right away that even if the medium was able to somewhat control the spirits that use his efforts, he was easily controlled by them. He's not a medium in full control of himself. He is a powerful medium, but he doesn't know how to use his mediumship for the good. He only knows how to use his mediumship as a means of getting monetary rewards. And in that way, because he's using his mediumship without ever studying and learning more about it, most probably, we don't have this information, but if you study mediumship, you are better able to control your mediumship. He's not. It says here that he was easily controlled by the spirits. And that's the risk of a medium that doesn't know how to control oneself. And of course, the office is full of lower spirits, and the medium starts to concentrate, enters into a trance, right? So when he enters into a trance, there is this flow of energies that comes from his mouth, nostrils, ears, and chest area. This you know, they don't, Andre Luiz doesn't say here. I'm supposing it's the ectoplasm. It's the emanations that the mediums are able to exert that are used for materialization, manifestations of spirits. Gubbio says that this energy, everyone has it. It's common to all individuals, but few know how to use it and understand and use it. And then he talks about it throughout history. So we have Newton was the first one to mention it through this Spiritus Subtilissimus. He talks about it in this energy that comes from oneself. He talks, you can find more information on him. We know Mesmer, right? Kardec was a follower of Mesmer. Mesmer was the responsible for bringing the notion of magnetic fluid, these energies that we use to help healing others, that those that practice Reiki today use it a lot. In Spiritism, we combine the magnetic fluid with the spiritual fluid, but this all comes from Mesmer. Kardec started studying Mesmer, and then with the Spiritism, of course, he moved away from Mesmer a little bit. And it's interesting, Van Reichenbach, this is after Kardec, he comes with this concept of the odic force, which is a vital energy or life force that he was investigating the nervous system, and he noticed that this force that he said was a combination of electricity, magnetism, and heat. and he thought that it was radiated by most substances, and that people that are sensitive would have it. He said that the odic force would permeate all plants, animals, and humans. So he's very close to the concept that Spiritism brings us of the vital fluids and the force emanating from each one of us. Gubbio explains that we have reincarnate with an opportunity to learn how to use it and develop and sublimate it, but most of us just we choose to ignore it to avoid learning and to avoid the struggle, right? So we're just delaying our own moral evolvement. And Andre Luiz comments that he's a powerful spirit. He's in full contact with the spirits around him, right? He's in a trance state. We talked about, we studied the Spirits book recently about those that enter into a state of trance and disconnect from the physical body and enter into contact with the spiritual world by the diverse different aspects. And this is the type of medium that we just studied in the Spirits book, right? But because he's not morally evolved, he's in contact with the spirits that have vibrated at the same level that he does. He goes to and find those that share his same thoughts and energies. And Gubbio says that there are billions of evolving spirits surrounding us incarnates, but most of them are in a lower order than ourselves, the incarnate ones, and they become instruments of incarnate's desires and passions, sharing the desires and passions and amplifying the desires and passions. This is what we say always, right? When you allow yourself to be an instrument of your inferior tendencies, you have a lot of spirits that are going to use the opportunity to associate with you and use you feel their own needs and help us fulfill our own inferior needs. So Gubbio finishes here saying a capacity for sublimation is imperative for all those who dedicate themselves to the interchange between the two worlds. Because if virtue is transmissible, vices are highly contagious. What he says is that when we allow our vices to take back the better of us, we immediately associate with a lot of these inferior spirits that may not be personally connected to us, but are connected to our vibrations and to our vices, and will use us for their inferior desires also. Okay, so a lot of information here, a lot of things to go over. Almost something I missed here, or some additional comments, especially on the ectoplasm or the energy?
No, I think we covered everything.
Okay, any questions, other questions, comments? Okay, so we're going for the last part now.
Okay. Meanwhile, we saw that the medium had disconnected from his body and was listening to the argumentation of highly intelligent spirit whose cooperation Saldanha had won. Go back, my friend, the spirit was saying vangloriously to the medium, and tell our sick sister's husband that her organic case is simple and not all she really needs. All she needs is a doctor's help. But isn't she a victim of plain old obsession? Asked the medium somewhat hesitantly. No, that's not it at all. Make it clear to him that the problem is medically related. Her nervous system is in taters. She needs shock therapy in a hospital, that's all. But wouldn't it be best to try to do something to help her? Asked the medium, worried. The spirit laughed, as if there were no need for concern, and replied, Now, you should know by now that everyone has their own destiny. If our assistance is to be effective, there is no time for quibbling. Get on with it. At this point, Saldanan smiled in satisfaction, approving the suggestion and showing us that a lot of people can be fooled when they trust only in the narrowness of their own observations. In light of the situation, I asked Gubbio discreetly, isn't this an authentic spirit manifestation? Yes, it is, he confirmed gravely. It is indeed an authentic phenomenon in which an incarnate individuality receives the opinions of a discarnate one. However, Andre, incarnate friends of the Christian ideal are now realizing that such phenomena per se are as rebellious as a mighty river flowing randomly out of control. We will never condone dogmatic, intolerant spiritism. However, it is essential that a climate of prayer, edifying self-denial, willingness to serve, and renewing faith through empowering moral standards comprise a fundamental mark of our transforming mediumistic activities so that we may truly take part in a noble endeavor for the Supreme Father. This man is a medium with rich and broad potential, but who, because of the ordinary business dealings to which he lowered his faculties, he does not awaken constructive impressions in those who come to him. He may be considered a valuable co-worker in certain cases, but he is not the ideal collaborator that can elicit the interests of great benefactors of the superior life. Such spirits would not compromise grand teachings by means of otherwise intentioned servants who do not hesitate to sell their divine goods for money. The pathway of prayer and sacrifice is thus indispensable to all those who intend to dignify life. A heartfelt prayer increases the radiating powers of the mind, expanding and ennobling its energies, while selflessness and kindness enlighten all those who draw near to their source, which is rooted in the highest good. Consequently, it is not enough to merely exteriorize and mobilize the mental force that we all possess. Above all else, we must give it a divine direction. That is why we strive for Jesus-centered spiritism. It is the only way we can keep from going disastrously astray. I grasped the instructor's muffled, invaluable explanations, and highly impressed, I kept quiet out of respect. The medium returned to his physical cage, thereby ending the technical mechanical contact with our spheres without any result regarding any spiritual elevation that may have improved the environment. He opened his eyes, readjusted himself in his chair, and told Gabriel that his wife's problem could be solved with the help of psychiatry. He commented on the precarious condition of her nerves and even recommended a specialist he knew who would take a different approach to a cure. The couple gratefully thanked him, and as they said goodbye, the professor advised Margarita to be courageous and cautious whenever she felt depressed. The young woman listened to these remarks with the disenchantment and pain of someone who felt like the target of sarcasm and left. Saldanan congratulated his assistants in the deplorable endeavor and invited them to get together to celebrate their triumphant. Then he told us in a firm voice, "Let's go, my friends. He who plots revenge must follow it through to the end." Gubbio smiled sadly at him to hide his extreme affliction, and we meekly followed him out.
Okay, so we see here Gubbio giving a lot of explanations about the mediumship done in the right way. When we talk in Spiritism about mediumship with Jesus, it's not in a religious sense. It's in a sense of doing it for higher moral purposes, to help us evolve on our moral side. Of course, for this, we need to study, to learn, to prepare ourselves, to learn more about mediumship. To those that are mediums need to learn how to control it, how to make good use of it, but always with a purpose according to Spiritism of our moral elevation. That's what Gubbio told Andre Luiz here. And we see here in the beginning, when the medium disconnects from the physical body, goes to the spiritual world, it starts to interact with the highly intelligent spirit whose cooperation Saldanha had won. Highly intelligent, but not morally evolved, because he's interested in what Saldanha is offering him, the rewards of the spiritual world in Gregorio's place, right? So this spirit interacting directly with the medium in this spiritual world talks to him, saying that, you know, you're wasting your time here. Tell that her case is organic and she needs a doctor's help. And the medium, who is somewhat aware of these cases because he works with this, right? And he's seen many cases of obsession. And he asks, isn't this a case of an obsession? But he, when we said that he's controlled by spirit, so he doesn't have the fully awareness of the situation, and he's at mercy of the spirits that are talking to him in the spiritual world, and in this case, inferior spirits that tell him that she has a physical problem, she needs shock therapy. And the medium try here. Wouldn't be best to try to do something to help her? Again, he's being paid, so he wants to deliver something, right? And that's another problem when we talk about paying mediums, right? When you go to a medium and you give him or her money, they are supposed to give you something in return. And if there is nothing they can give, they cannot access the spiritual world or does not receive anything from the spiritual world, they will be like Whoopi Goldberg in the beginning of the movie Ghost, right? They will receive the money and give whatever information will please the individual that is in front of them without any care for any real help. Most of these mediums are psychics. Mediums are sensitive, so they can sense what the person in front of them needs to hear. So they'll tell them what they need to hear without being of effective assistance. In this case, the medium is still trying to get something to give back for the money that he received, and the spirit is not willing to give him anything. And then it's when Andre Luiz asks, are we not seeing a real spirit, authentic spirit manifestation? And Gubbio says, yes. We are seeing an intermediary between the physical and the spiritual world.
Lost you.
We lost you.
Yeah, well, I'm back, right?
Yeah.
My AirPods went out of power. Sorry. So Gubbio says we are seeing an authentic phenomenon of an individuality receiving the opinions of an discarnate one. So it is a mediumship phenomena. The medium in the spiritual world talking to a spirit and receiving information. But as he says here, a climate of prayer, edifying self-denial, willingness to serve and renew in faith through empowering moral standards comprise the fundamental mark of our transforming mediumistic activities, so that we may truly take part in a noble endeavor for the Supreme Father. It's nothing what that this medium is doing. So he talks here that a heartfelt prayer increases the radiating powers of the mind, expanding and ennobling its energies with selflessness and kindness, enlighten all those who draw near to their source, which is rooted in the highest good. Meaning, as he finished, we strive for Jesus-centered spiritism, the only way we can keep it from going disastrously astray. And he's talking here specifically about spiritism and those working as mediums in the work of mediumship in spiritism, that we need to work
for a higher purpose, as edifying ourselves and those around us, providing help and assistance to us and those in need, the eternal spirit, not for immediate reward in the material world that in the end is temporary and doesn't help us in the long run. Of course, any help that we can provide, and that's why we have fraternal assistance meetings, sessions that we can provide to alleviate the pain, combining with the spiritual assistance is what we are doing. But the purpose of the mediums is to work for the assistance and elevation of others and themselves, okay? So the medium goes back to his physical body and tells that there's nothing, he doesn't bring any information, just recommends a specialist because he feels obligated to do something, right? He has no information from the spiritual world to give to them. So he says to them, oh, this is a physical problem. This is a disease that has to be treated by a psychiatrist, and he recommended specialists because he wants to give something to justify the large amount of money he received. And Gubbio, you know, if Saldanha is happy with what he conquered, and they leave, Gubbio smiling sadly, and that was the visit to the medium. That is a real medium, but doesn't serve his purpose of helping others in the true sense. Okay, that's it for this chapter. Elmo, something to add here?
I don't think to add, but just to repeat what you already said. There's a few things that, or expressions that we say repeatedly in our sessions, in our studies, that almost feels like ritualistic, but you see here that it's absolutely not dogmatic and absolutely not ritualistic. One of these is mediumship with Jesus, and I'm glad that you said mediumship with Jesus is not in a religious sense, but with upgraded moral values. Another thing that we always say is a medium is always a medium. It's a medium 24/7, and mediumship's not only practiced in a spiritist center during a mediumship meeting. A medium is a medium. It always have that channel with the spiritual world, and we receive the possibility to interact with the spiritual world in many different ways and in many different scenarios. Another thing that we do very often, the use of prayers before the works, at the end of the work. Here we see a very good example, and Gubbio reinforced the necessity of kind of remind ourselves to make a quick prayer before we start any endeavor, whatever we're going to do. We're going to go ride your car into a new travel, make a prayer before you start driving. You're going to start your day of work, make a quick 2 seconds prayer before you start the working day. All of those things, this prayer will help in every situation for us to surround ourselves with proper vibrations. It will help us to disconnect ourselves from those who perhaps don't want the most success of whatever we seek to do. And I have a question. I'm not absolutely sure, and I don't think it's clear in this reading over here. The psychic, definitely an somewhat powerful medium, has this opening into spiritual world, have dialogues with the discarnate spirits. Is your impression that he is actually aware that he's having those dialogues with the discarnate spirits? Is the impression that you actually have an understanding of the phenomena that's happening, or he take this to a different approach to his psychic, different ways of understanding this?
I think he's aware. My impression here by the description of everything, he's a he's a true medium. in the sense that he understands the interactions between him and the spiritual world, but he doesn't understand the higher needs of how this interaction should happen, right? He's a psychic and a medium, right? So again, the differences between psychic and a medium, subtle differences. Medium is the one that brings the, it can be used as an instrument from the spiritual world to give communications. A psychic will go to the spiritual world, have this ability to go to the spiritual world and report what he or she had seen or listened there using their own abilities, right? But those are they are similar in many ways and very easy to mix, right? So, but they are two different things.
A question that he is a medium and he's using mediumship, but I'm not so convinced that he's aware of this phenomenon is happening, that he really knows that these interactions actually with discarnate spirits. I don't know. I hope you're right.
There is not much information here to go further than this. We just can only interpret what you read, and by what my sense here is that he's a medium and he understands. He has a limited understanding of his interactions with the spiritual world. I would say.
Yeah. Well, that he's a medium, that's no question. That's absolutely obvious. But is he completely aware of the phenomena is what I'm questioning here. But either way,
yeah, I think he has a limited understanding of the interactions with the spiritual world.
Yeah. And to that, I bring the necessity of educating that, or at least a minimum of scientific curiosity to try to figure out what's happening here, which voices are that, who I'm talking with. And when you guide this attribute that you have towards a financial or any kind of advantage of it, it's almost that you close the window of learning anything, of expanding understanding the phenomenon, because now you say, oh, I can make money out of it. I can use this as a way of making my living, and you almost close yourself with the opportunity to explore it a little longer, a little harder, and have a better sense of what is this powerful thing that you have in your head. And that is one of the problems of selfishness and greed.
Hey, João.
Yeah, Renato.
Just it's not much of a question, more of a comment or my opinion. So if I'm wrong, correct me, please. Because I mean, I've been studying lately a lot on the mediumship subject, and there are places where there's a lot of mysticism around the medium. Sometimes people see the medium as a different or above or whatever. And in this chapter, we were talking about the moral, because of the moral qualities of this particular medium, he attracts the spirits that are around him, and so far, so on. And the difference between the mediumship with Jesus and this type of paid mediumship. I just want to say this is my opinion. It's not much of a difference. It's not of a big of a leap from one to the other. So people don't have a misconception that all mediums have this moral quality because they are doing this, or they are high in this and that, and they're not. We can see that on the medium's book, the description that Emmanuel gives about the mediums. Whoever is curious, just ask later. So he pretty much put the mediums in their place, not in a bad sense. It's just so mediums can understand their test, what they're doing. It's just for people to understand that we are on the same level pretty much. It's just a little thing that we do differently, that we decide to do a little effort to work with the mediumship in a good way, with Jesus, and make a little bit effort that makes that difference. Because sometimes people might be seeing the medium in a way that they're not. It's just a regular person like everybody else, struggling like everybody else, trying to make understand this faculty that they have. And like everything else in life, some struggle and some figure out a way to use in a way that can help other people. So that's what I wanted to say. So I'm not saying that here we have this mysticism around mediums, but it's I think it's important people to understand that is not we are all like everybody else.
Exactly. Thanks, Renato. Very good point. Yes, it's just where our focus should be, right? It's not to claim that we're better than anybody else, but the trying to do the right thing, trying to focus on how we can improve ourselves on our daily lives. That's exactly what the mediums that are trying to do the right thing are doing also, right? They're not. It's just the difference of where you want to go with it, right? With your struggles, limitations. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We are imperfect spirits, right? So, yes, thanks.
The mechanism of mediumship is the same for all mediums. The process is the same for all mediums. But the consequences of how you use it is extremely different. So, yeah, so it's, the mechanism is the same. The reasons that each medium has this open channel may vary and likely to vary because it's kind of personal. The opportunity to use for the right is the same, but the consequences generated for the medium itself and for those who follow those mediums is extremely different. And we can see here how different it can be.
So taking the opportunity of what Renato said, he's going to present to us a lecture by the last Sunday of May. And his lecture is going to be, I'm in a mediumship meeting, now what? So it's a very interesting subject that Renato is going to present to us last Sunday of the month, okay?
On the 29th?
On the last Sunday is the 29th, I believe so, right? Yeah, 29. So for next month on the liberation, we start this chapter called Mission of Love, which is the beginning of rescuing of the transformation of Saldanha, the leader of the obsessors. That's how we are going to see how Gubbio is going to transform him. And that's a very beautiful chapter, really worth coming back next month. Okay. Also a reminder that we have a change this week in our studies. On Thursdays, our studies will comprise only of the Spirit's book now, starting at 7 p.m. For those that watch it online, only time changes, nothing else. So 7 p.m. from 7 to 8 p.m. on Thursdays, we are going to study the Spirit's book. The Medium's book now is going to be on the third Sunday of the month. So not this coming Sunday, which is the Gospel according to Spiritism, but next Sunday, the Medium's book. And we are going to be at the Spiritist Center at SGNY doing the study from there. So you can watch it in person. And for those going there, we have the fraternal assistance from 6 to 7. And we have the passes after we finish the study, okay? For those that are watching online, the only change, the time is no longer at 6:30, it's at 7 p.m. Okay? And you can join through Zoom, nothing changes. That's any questions on that? Starting this week, right? We all good? So for those that want to join us there, I'll be there. Elmo probably will be there also. We have our study there in the same format, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, John, Elmo, and everyone. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we are grateful today to be together as brothers and sisters, sharing our study of the book Liberation. We are grateful to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the helpers, the healers who are with us, helping to place ourselves in an open-minded and an understanding way to receive the information and to put it into practice and use each day. We understand that obsession is a two-way street and that it is actually a handshake. We give thanks for a better understanding of the compassionate work of the high order spirits who are helping in the interactions with very difficult disincarnates and incarnates. And we realize now the importance of mediumship, that it needs to be elevated to a higher moral purpose. This is most important. This is of great value for all of us to know. We try to keep our thoughts elevated each day and our hearts open and compassionate as well as flexible. We can use the 3 keys in Spiritism: indulgence, forgiveness, and benevolence. And through our prayers, we are actually surrounding ourselves and others with protection and guidance, which is very important on a regular basis, day and evening. We give thanks to the good spirits, the helpers, the healers again, and the benefactors. We ask humbly for the love, light, and peace of Christ to be within us and throughout us, useful in our daily life, to keep our vibrations and thoughts elevated and steady and grounded. We humbly ask now to continue with our prayers, with our studies and mindfulness throughout the week, for we are never alone. There is always assistance and guidance. However, we must do our part. The spirits will not do it for us. We have our own gifts, we have our own talents in which we can use them in the daily life each and every day. We can do something on some level for ourselves and others, hopefully through inspiration and through discernment. We humbly ask now to close this meeting. We ask for the safety and protection as we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we remind ourselves again to be beacons of light. Go forth now in gratitude and peace. So be it.